Welcome to the Voice of MPE, where we bring you the top thought leaders in fintech and payments to share their fresh insights with you. I'm Laura McCracken, and I am excited today to be joined by Britton. Ez and I have known each other for a couple of years. I first met him when he was the CEO of CFIT, which stands for, Center for Finance, Innovation, and Technology. Is that right?
Perfect. Absolutely spot on. It just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? It's
Absolutely. Very easy acronym. And I was working on the national payments vision. And now you have something new, you have a company started called Collectively Better. Tell us about that.
That's right. So look, thank you for having me on. Wonderful to be here, Laura. Brilliant to see you as always. So Collectively Better, new organization. We're a transformation accelerator. So we help startups, scale-ups, corporates grow and scale, go from A to B. It's a whole idea of what got you here, what won't get you there, what do you do next in order to be successful? And we do that through a combination of strategy, mentoring, and delivery services. So whether it's helping you with exec coaching, whether it's sitting down with you and looking at your strategy and doing some drains up road mapping, or whether it's literally supporting you on delivery of go-to-market, et cetera, et cetera. We just get involved, roll up our sleeves. Our whole thing is there's tons of advice, not enough help. We're here to provide both.
Awesome. So fueling the entrepreneurs of the UK.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Great. And so today we're going to talk about digital identity.
Indeed.
And digital identity is something we've been talking about in the payments industry and the fintech industry for years.
Yeah.
But recently it's gotten onto the political scene. It's become much more controversial than we actually expected, right?
Well, it's always been pretty controversial, but I think we were moving in a direction that it was becoming far more recognized and accepted for the value it was going to bring. And then there was an announcement that may have swung the dial the other way just a little bit. So
yeah,
great.
I mean, did you see there was actually a protest this weekend against digital identity, and there have been 2.9 million signatures on the petition against digital ID. I mean, why do you really think, looking at the history, I know about 20 years ago we had a debate, but what do you think is really driving this controversy on digital identity?
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of things. I think there is something quite unique to the British psyche around the idea of what people are considering to be an ID card, and I think this is where the whole problem really started, right? When Tony Blair tried to bring in the idea of the Brit card back in the 90s, and then massive Daily Mail campaign against it. And, this idea that the police were going to stop and search you for your ID. And, it was going to be a police totalitarian state. And I don't want to be tracked for this, and this. And you know what? I understand those fears. They're not irrational fears. I think that's the thing we've got to get right about this debate. It's really easy to dismiss people and go, well, you're an idiot because you think that. But it makes sense for people to have those worries and concerns. The thing I find quite interesting is we already have identity. We have all sorts of forms of identity, whether it's passports, driving licenses, NI, national insurance numbers, NHS numbers, right? We have so many different forms of identity that are all paper-based. We have them today, and yet there is no requirement for us to turn up and show those things, unless, of course, you're trying to get on a plane. Then, yes, you need a passport. That's just how it works, right? Mm-hmm. So, this whole issue around identity, I think, has got really confused. And then part of the challenge we now have is, obviously, you have the echo chamber of social media at the moment, which just massively amplifies all the negativity, all the biases. And it's a wonderful place for people to spend their time really inflaming the masses. And that's what a lot of people tend to do. And you get huge amounts of misinformation and then downright disinformation around what things are and what they're not and what they mean. And I think when we look at digital identity, and interestingly, as an industry, we've tried to move away from that term to digital verification, because that's really what digital identity is all about. We can touch on that kind of difference in a moment, because we've grown up in a world that is very, very analog. It's in person, right? If I need to identify you, the best way for us to do that today is you give me a photograph that says, this is me, it has been signed off by a government body. And we'll go, yeah, great, wonderful. You are who you are. So that is how we identify you. In the digital world, it's very, very different. I don't need to see your photo to identify you. I need to see something that credentializes you and says this person is verified, or this entity is verified to access and use this service. That's actually what I care about. Not do I have a photo that matches the person that I'm speaking to, or the entity that wants to access this system. So I think part of the problem is we're going through a bit of a paradigm shift at the moment. We're seeing that in other areas as well, whether it's digital assets, whether it's AI. We're rapidly transitioning into a fully digital world, whereas in the past it's just been about services, shopping, social media, et cetera, kind of a merging of the digital and the physical. Now it's actually purely about how do we actually represent ourselves online in a way that actually makes sense with the modern paradigm. But then on top of that, if you look at the announcement that was then made, unfortunately, there was a linkage between digital identification and employment and immigration, which suddenly reinforces all those concerns about what identity might be used for. Okay, you're talking about immigrants now, and a lot of the people who are against it may well be, okay, cool, what's the problem? But actually, think about what you're saying. You're saying, as an immigrant, you must have this digital identity, and if you don't have it, and if you aren't able to demonstrate it, you will not be able to get a job, right? So people are hearing that same message, which is, look, see, I told you this is what they wanted. They want to be able to track us. They want to be able to prove who we are. They want to know what we're doing. They want this, and this. So what's happened is a really damaging message has gone out about what the purpose of digital identity is for, how it's going to be utilized, when actually, as an industry, we've been talking about digital verification, whereby you or an entity that represents you is able to get access to various services quickly, easily, and efficiently, and securely. That's the whole purpose of it. And unfortunately, that munging of messages has created this colossal mess that we now have.
Excellent. Well, look, I'd like to go more into some of the benefits of digital identity. Before we do that, I want to look at a couple of stats, because one of the things I'm really confused about is that you mentioned the fact that we already have a lot of digital identities. So I was looking at the stats today. Passports, 86.5% of the British population has a passport. 86%, that's a lot. 100% of adults, nearly 100% of adults have national insurance numbers. I think 74% of adults have driver's licenses, and 75% of adults have national health insurance apps. So we already have a lot of. So what is different about this? Can you help me to define what digital ID is versus, say, a passport? Is this not just a digital passport?
I mean, they're very similar, right? The purpose of it is the same, all right? Why do you have a passport? To identify who you are so you can gain access to a service. Typically, in this case, it's to be able to cross the border and enter another country, right? Why do you have a driving license? It's a piece of paper that fundamentally says this person has passed their driving test and is legally allowed to drive a vehicle. So when stopped and asked, do you have a driving license? Yes, I do. The interesting thing is we tend to use driving licenses as a proxy for identity, right? So a lot of places will accept your driving license as a form of ID, as opposed to saying, give us your passport, because most people don't want to carry their passports around, but everyone who has a driving license carries it in their wallet. Guess why? If you're in your car and you get stopped by the police, you need to be able to show your driving license. So we are already in this world where we have forms of identity that you are required to show in certain circumstances, right? So when we talk about digital IDs, really what we're talking about is taking those core forms of identity, those credentials, those qualifications, and putting them online into what we in industry refer to as a digital wallet, which you can just think of as an app that stores those credentials. Think about, a lot of people do it today in many ways. They'll take a photocopy of their passport and they'll put it on their Google Drive, or they'll put it on their 365, so that if someone asks for it, they can just send an email of that photocopy. Super secure, right? Can't possibly be hacked. That's just an incredible system that we are basing the 21st century's banking system on, right? It is absolutely extraordinary.
I think I've sent out my passport through email probably 20 or 30 times per year for different banking or mortgage or whatever.
Think how many scanned copies of your passport, your driving license, your council tax exist in the inboxes of various government services, private companies, individuals, right? Mm-hmm. And you have no idea what's happened to that information. Even though we have GDPR rules, you have absolutely no idea. And then what do they do with it, right? So we have a lot of these digital driving license or passport verification services, where what happens is actually gets sent off to some person in Mexico who then has a look at it and, says, yes, I believe this person is who they say they are. And it's apparently done by AI. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Yeah. You read about some of the startup scaling stories and you learn how real that fake it till you make it approach really is, right? So, with a digital identity, you've taken those credentials, you've taken that identity, you've placed it into an app. And then the key thing is that if anyone needs you to prove an aspect about yourself, verify an element about yourself, whether it's my address, whether it's my age, whether it's that I'm eligible to drive, whether it's I'm a British citizen, whether it is my face. Actually, there aren't many reasons why someone needs to be able to see my face. Right? When you really think about it, your bank account, they don't need to know what you look like. They just need to know that you are authorized to access this bank account. And the purpose of verification is for that service provider to be able to query your wallet and say, does this individual or this entity, and we should come back to that word later, is this individual or this entity verified to access the service? Mm-hmm. Great example is trying to buy alcohol online, right? You try and buy alcohol from Sainsbury's, they shouldn't need to see a copy of your passport to buy a drink. All they care about is, are you old enough? That's all they don't even care about what your age is. Are you over the age of 18? And as long as your wallet has a verifiable proof of age, and it can respond with a yes to that query, wonderful. That's all they ever need to know about you, right? Mm-hmm. And where I think we've got really lost is this idea that they're going to know everything about you. And that's understandable, because it's very hard to understand what information about you these services are able to access. But I always find it quite fascinating when people do complain about this. It was like during the COVID situation, when people were saying, don't get a COVID vaccination, they're going to use it to track you. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. And it was often a tweet on Twitter or a message or post on Facebook. No, sorry, did you just post or tweet that on your Apple iPhone? Yes? Okay. Under your own Facebook? Right. Okay. So look, they can already track you. That kind of information, if they really want to.
My life's an open book.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a massive amount of misinformation, disinformation here. Mm-hmm. I mean, the reality is any technology can be abused, right? So we shouldn't ignore that either. But I think the current situation that we have is the worst of all worlds right now.
Yeah, I think I was looking up the other day what's actually going to be in the wallet, what's in the government wallet.
Yes.
And what I see posted on the government websites is that they're looking for the digital ID to include the exact same things that are in a passport. It's the name, date of birth, nationality or resident status, and a photo. That's it. It doesn't include your shopping history, or it doesn't include other things. It's just that.
And the thing is all those all those attributes that you just mentioned, a service that needs to prove something about you doesn't need to see all of them. It will just need to see the specific attributes that it requires verifying. And the fact that you're in that government wallet says the government have verified that these credentials about you, these attributes about you are true, right? And that's the importance of it.
So if I go to a porn or a gambling site, I don't need to show my picture. I just need to show that I'm over a certain age, right?
Exactly that, right? Exactly that. But again, people do get nervous about, well, why do these sites now need to know all this information about me? And I think that's a genuine question that needs to be answered, because people have been able to access services like that, for example, like porn sites, without having to reveal anything about themselves other than the laptop they're on, their browser history, this and this, which they're already able to access through cookies. But actually being able to say, this is my age, you've not had to verify that before. But again, the point is that that's all they should be able to ask you. And the key thing here is giving people control over that sharing of data. And this comes back down to that whole issue around data sharing and sovereignty of identity in the first place, which is that people have historically had very little control over how their information is shared. And that has created an environment where people are exceptionally skeptical about what their data is going to be used for, how it's going to be accessed. And that's a really difficult problem to solve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And what do you do about the digitally excluded, like elderly people who maybe don't have a mobile phone? Do you have any ideas of how we deal with that?
So, it is hard, right? That is a difficult problem. And, I think one of the things that's been made quite apparent as well is, for all the benefits of it, you've got to be very careful about making these things mandatory until the population is ready to adopt these solutions. You can do it. India did it. They went wholesale in on this, and it caused massive upheaval. But now the entire country is moving forwards. You've got farmers in rural areas of India able to do far more digitally than we can in the UK. It's absolutely wild. So I think part of it is, yes, people can adapt to these things. But I think the other piece is, particularly in this country, you have to take people on a journey. So you can't make it mandatory at this stage. It has to be an option. But what you tend to try and do is you reward those who take the option, right? Mm-hmm. Whilst still providing access to those who aren't able to or haven't yet made that jump. And it's about gradually educating and incentivizing people to adopt those solutions where possible. Mm-hmm. I would really be interested to see the stats on truly digitally excluded. But I do believe there is a journey that we can take people on over time.
Yeah. And let's kind of end it on what are the key benefits? You're selling me on getting my digital identity. What do you think what will I get out of it?
Well, I think there's benefits both sides, right? So if we start with why should businesses adopt digital identity, fundamentally, it massively decreases onboarding time for new services. It reduces KYC, AML, KYB costs, right? And we demonstrated this when I was CEO of CFIT. We did a coalition on digital identity, fighting financial crime with small businesses. And we demonstrably showed that actually leveraging digital identity would have a significant benefit to businesses in the form of reduced costs and reduced onboarding time. And what that actually means for the end consumer, whether that consumer is a business or an individual, is that they get to access the services they need far more quickly, far more efficiently, far more easily, which means they can actually leverage those things far faster. So, for example, if you're looking to get a loan, right, instead of having to go through a very long, drawn out process around proving who you are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like that. Not approval may not be, but the evidence that you are who you say you are suddenly speeds up dramatically. If you're looking to sign up to a new service, you no longer have to wait for yourself to be reviewed, to be assessed. All of those things that take manually performed through checking your passport, checking your driving license. So fundamentally, access to services and not having to share your information through photocopies, through scans, through emails. But I think where it starts to get really interesting is we're in the world of AI agents now. We're starting to talk more and more about personalized services, personalized agents running and doing things on your behalf. Well, without digital identity, that's just not possible, right? Yeah. That entity, that AI agent that's going to act on your behalf has to be able to be seen as a representative of you, right? So there needs to be some way of credentializing that agent that is acting on your behalf. And digital identity is the key way to facilitate that. Mm-hmm. So I see a huge array of benefits for digital identity, digital verification of those attributes when accessing services for basically everyone. Fundamentally, this is a huge boost to growth for the UK economy. And to my mind, it's pretty much a no-brainer that we should do it. But again, we've discussed some of the challenges and the problems around why people understandably feel skeptical.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of sold because I've got a passport. Like I said, I send it around 20, 30 times a year. I'm worried about my identity theft. I'm worried about my security online. I want to know who I'm dealing with online. So especially when it comes to online, I think digital identity is absolutely key. And being able to have it on my mobile phone and being able to, use it as I need to rather than carrying around a passport is also helpful.
Well, I think that identity theft one is a really important piece because today, if someone steals my copy of my passport and starts using it, I have to get a whole new passport issued. Right, that is a very costly and time-consuming process. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the world of a digital passport, for example, you just revoke the credentials and issue new ones. Right, passport doesn't change; just the credentials that mean it is that I can utilize it in this way are. And here's the thing. This is a system that we've been using for a very, very long time. It's called public-private key encryption on the internet, right? We've been doing this for a very, very, very long time. It works. We just haven't utilized it for identity of individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we will stay tuned for the debate. I mean, it's been fascinating to watch. I never expected it to blow up exactly the way it has, but I am a proponent. I am fingers crossed that we will get something through, whether it's voluntary and then we prove the benefits or not. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Ez. I hope that thank you all for the listeners out there listening to this debate or discussion. I look forward to seeing you guys at MPE. It is March 17th to 19th in Berlin. It is my favorite conference. It's always on my agenda. So please join us there. Look forward to seeing you.